Let's talk about one of the most powerful psychological traps in toxic relationships: addiction to the highs that come after the mistreatment. This is one of the most dangerous psychological traps in any toxic relationship, and it's one that most people don't realize they've been caught in until it's already done the damage. You see, emotional abuse isn't always loud. It's not always obvious. Sometimes it hides behind the illusion of love, behind passion, chemistry, connection. But when love feels like a battlefield, when it becomes a cycle of pain followed by intense relief, what you're experiencing isn't love, it's trauma bonding. Let me break this down. In the beginning, they make you feel like the center of the universe. They give you everything: attention, compliments, long late-night talks. You feel chosen, elevated, like finally someone sees you. That flood of emotional intensity lights up every reward center in your brain. You feel high on connection, safe, needed. But then, without warning, they pull away. They stop texting as much. They get colder, distant. They ignore your calls, withhold affection, or start nitpicking small things about you. You don't know what changed. And the truth is, nothing changed. This was part of the plan, because the real trap isn't the mistreatment itself. It's what comes after. After days of silence, or a painful argument, or that gut-wrenching anxiety they've now conditioned you to live with, they show up again. A sweet message, an apology, and "I miss you." And just like that, your body floods with relief. You go from anxious to euphoric in seconds. And what does your brain learn? This must be love. But it's not. What you're addicted to is the relief. The high that comes after the emotional withdrawal. It's like holding your breath underwater, finally coming up for air and calling it romance. But love isn't supposed to suffocate you, just to revive you. This cycle of devaluation, withdrawal, and reward is called intermittent reinforcement. It's one of the most powerful psychological mechanisms ever studied. The same system used in gambling addictions, slot machines, dog training, and now emotional manipulation. And here's what's really dark. The inconsistency makes you chase harder. You start obsessing over how to win them back, how to fix the distance, how to earn that version of them that loved you in the beginning. You start blaming yourself. Maybe I overreacted. Maybe I was too needy. Maybe I need to give them space. But the real truth, they taught you to confuse pain with passion, to associate anxiety with affection. And now, you're not chasing love, you're chasing validation. From the very person who broke you in the first place. It's emotional withdrawal. You crave them like a drug, not because they're good for you, but because they keep taking themselves away and feeding you just enough to stay hooked. So, how do you break it? Step 1. Clarity over chemistry. The high is not love, it's survival. And if love constantly puts you in survival mode, it's not love. Step 2. Get off the roller coaster. Block the contact. Cut the pattern. You're not healing if the same person keeps tearing you open. Step 3. Rewire your nervous system. Find calm in the absence of chaos. Learn to love the silence. Learn to breathe without them. The more peace you create for yourself, the more you'll realize you never needed their storm. Real love doesn't hurt and then heal you just to hurt you again. Real love doesn't ask you to earn safety. If someone only makes you feel valued after making you feel disposable, they're not loving you. They're controlling you, and you deserve more than recycled apologies. You deserve consistency. Have you ever noticed how the same person who hurts you is often the one who rushes to fix it? They start the fire, then show up with a bucket of water, just enough to look like a savior. That's not love, that's emotional manipulation in its purest form. There's a psychological term for this. It's called trauma bonding. But on a human level, it feels like madness disguised as intimacy. One of the most manipulative traps in toxic relationships is when the very person who causes your emotional distress suddenly shifts into your savior. They ignite the fire, then offer you water, and you're so desperate for relief, you don't realize they lit the match in the first place. Here's how it plays out. They provoke a fight, maybe by being cold, distant, dismissive, or even outright cruel. They accuse you of things you didn't do. They withhold affection. They say something deeply cutting and then vanish, ignoring your messages, leaving you confused, spiraling, and emotionally ungrounded. Then, when you've almost reached your breaking point, they return with tenderness. They might send a thoughtful message, call you like nothing happened, apologize in a vague way. "I'm sorry if you felt that way," never taking real accountability, but just enough to soften you. They might even shower you with affection again, as if to say, "See, we're okay now." And what happens inside you? Relief. Not happiness, not security, but relief. That's the trap. They've trained your nervous system to associate chaos with closeness. Conflict becomes the trigger for connection. You start to feel that maybe this is how love works, ups and downs, pain and pleasure. But this isn't love. This is conditioning. And here's the truly dangerous part. Once this cycle begins, your mind starts to crave the reconciliation. The makeup phase. You start justifying the chaos as a necessary storm to get to the sunshine. You wait for the apology. You forgive the silence. You downplay the damage, because the high of reconciliation becomes addictive. But let's be clear, this is not emotional depth. It's emotional dependency. When someone intentionally wounds you, only to then position themselves as the healer, they are not bonding with you. They are controlling you. They create the illness and sell you the cure. Stoic wisdom tells us, we suffer more in imagination than in reality. But this trap twists that truth, because your imagination starts to believe that their care is genuine. You think they came back so they must care. But no. They came back to reset the pattern, to keep you tethered, to teach you that peace only comes through their chaos. Here's how you break free. Name the pattern. Awareness breaks the spell. Write it down. Look at the cycle. See how the hurt always precedes the help. It's not random. It's not just how they are. It's a system, and it's working exactly as intended. Don't take the bait. The next time they withdraw or create drama, instead of reacting, stay still. Watch. Observe. Let the wave pass. When they return with sweetness, remember that the pain they caused wasn't an accident. It was a strategy. Find real comfort elsewhere. Rewire your nervous system. Call a friend. Take a walk. Breathe. Journal. Remind yourself that peace doesn't come from chaos, it comes from within. They are not the calm after the storm. They are the storm. Detach from the cycle. Stop playing the role of both victim and forgiver. When you stop dancing to their rhythm, you begin creating your own. That's where your power is, because someone who truly loves you doesn't destroy your peace just to be the one to restore it. They don't push you to the edge, then act like a hero for pulling you back. They simply choose not to push you in the first place, making you feel like you'll never find better. This is one of the most insidious psychological traps. Not because it's loud or aggressive, but because it's subtle, and it's planted inside your mind like a seed. At first, it doesn't sound like manipulation. It sounds like, you'll never find someone who puts up with you like I do. No one else will ever love you the way I do. You really think anyone else would tolerate your mood swings? Good luck finding someone better. And over time, you start to believe them. That's how it works. They break you down slowly, bit by bit, until their bare minimum feels like a privilege, until their presence feels like a favor, until your standards shrink so much just being chosen by them feels like a win. They condition you to feel unworthy of more. You stop dreaming of a healthy relationship. You stop expecting emotional safety. You settle for survival. Because when someone constantly makes you feel like you're hard to love, when they frame their own mistreatment as patience, they don't just hurt your heart. They rewrite the way you see yourself. Here's the psychology behind it. Humans have a natural negativity bias. We hold on to criticism more than compliments. So if someone repeatedly tells you you're lucky they love you, or implies that you're a burden, your mind starts to cling to that message. And if they throw in just enough affection to confuse you, the occasional compliment, the rare moment of closeness, it creates cognitive dissonance. You think, well, Maybe I am the problem. Maybe they really are the best I can do. That's the trap. Because it's never about whether they're actually good for you. It's about making you doubt that you deserve anything better. Here's how you start to break free. Separate fact from fear. Ask yourself, if a friend told me they were in a relationship like mine, would I tell them to stay? Your fear of being alone doesn't mean you're in the right relationship. It just means they've convinced you that loneliness is worse than disrespect. List what you truly want in a partner. Respect, consistency, kindness, accountability. Now ask, am I actually getting any of that here? If the answer is no, then staying isn't loyalty. It's self-abandonment. Rebuild your identity. You weren't born thinking you were hard to love. Someone taught you that. It's time to unlearn it. Spend time alone. Reflect, create, breathe. The more time you spend with yourself, the more you'll realize you're not unlovable. You are just undervalued, and this is key. The person who makes you feel lucky just to be chosen is not the person meant to choose you, because real love doesn't feel like a competition. It feels like coming home. So the next time someone tries to make you feel like they're the best you'll ever get, remember this: anyone who needs to convince you they're the best thing in your life probably isn't. Making you think you're the toxic one whenever you bring up concerns. This trap is silent but deadly. You finally work up the courage to say, I don't like how you talk to me when you're angry. Or, it hurts when you ignore me for days. And what do they say? You're too sensitive. You always turn everything into a problem. Why are you trying to start drama again? Just like that, your valid concern becomes your fault, and it starts a dangerous loop. You begin to question whether you're the problem. This tactic is known as blame reversal, and it's used by people who don't want to be held accountable. So instead of taking responsibility, they flip the script and make you question your reality. It's subtle, it's psychological, and it works like this. You bring up a pattern. They turn it into an attack. You defend yourself. They get more upset. You end up apologizing for feeling hurt. You walk away from the conversation feeling confused, ashamed, and even more disconnected than before. You think, maybe I am being dramatic. Maybe I should have just let it go. Maybe I am the toxic one. That's what they want. Because if they can make you feel guilty every time you speak up, you'll stop speaking up. And when you stop speaking up, they get to continue doing whatever they want without consequence. Let's break this down psychologically. People who deflect blame do so to preserve their ego. They cannot tolerate being the villain in any story, even if the evidence is right in front of them. So they use a defense mechanism called projection. They project their own flaws and guilt onto you, accusing you of being controlling, manipulative, moody, because it's easier to tear you down than to look in the mirror. And if they can convince you that your emotions are the real problem, they never have to change their behavior. Here's how you combat this trap. Hold on to your reality. Write things down: when it happened, how it made you feel, what they said. Because the more you document, the harder it is for them to gaslight you into forgetting it. Set boundaries, not debates. You don't owe anyone a 10-paragraph explanation for your pain. If something hurts you, it's valid. A mature partner will listen. A manipulative one will deflect. Watch their patterns, not their words. If every time you speak up it turns into you being the bad guy, you're not in a relationship. You're in a power game. Let's be clear. You are not toxic for having emotions. You are not dramatic for needing clarity. And you are not crazy for noticing patterns that make you feel small. You're just waking up. And the more you wake up, the less control they have. So the next time someone twists your concern into an attack, remember this: anyone who punishes you for expressing pain is trying to protect the behavior that's causing it. That's not love. That's emotional warfare. And the best way to win is not to play. Convincing you that your love can heal them. This one is dangerous because it disguises itself as hope. You meet someone who's clearly struggling. They tell you stories about their past, how people abandoned them, how they've been hurt, how they don't know how to love properly, but they're trying. And somewhere in your heart a voice says, maybe I can be the one who helps them change. That's how it begins. They show you their wounds, but they never go to the doctor. They show you their damage, but never take responsibility for the wreckage they cause. Instead, they hand you the toolbox and say, "Fix me." And because you're a good person, because you care, you try. You show them patience. You forgive the red flags. You walk on eggshells around their triggers. You take on the role of their healer, their therapist, their emotional punching bag, and you tell yourself, if I just love them a little harder, they'll finally become who I see inside. But here's the trap. They've convinced you that their pain is your responsibility and that your love is the medicine. But love is not a cure, especially for someone who doesn't want to get better. They just want someone to absorb their pain. And the deeper you get, the harder it becomes to leave. Because now, walking away doesn't just feel like losing them. It feels like giving up on the version of them you believe they could become. Let's go deeper. Psychologically, this is a form of codependency. It's when your self-worth becomes tied to your ability to fix or save someone else. It creates a cycle. They hurt you. You forgive them. They promise to try. You stay. They hurt you again. And each time your tolerance increases, because now you're emotionally invested in their potential, not their reality. They don't need to change because they know you will. But here's the truth. You are not their rehabilitation center. You are not their emotional punching bag, and you are not obligated to suffer for someone else's healing. Here's how you break this trap. Separate empathy from responsibility. You can feel for someone without becoming their savior. Ask, are they working on themselves without me prompting them? If the only time they reflect is when they're about to lose you, that's manipulation, not growth. Remind yourself, love does not equal suffering. The right person won't need you to bleed just to feel seen. And most importantly, you deserve a love that doesn't require you to break yourself just to hold them together. Because anyone who truly wants to heal will do the work themselves. Your love can inspire someone, but it cannot replace their willingness to change. So stop trying to be the cure for someone who doesn't want to take their medicine. That's not love, that's emotional self-abandonment. The aftermath, how these traps keep you stuck even after it's over. The relationship ends, but somehow you still feel trapped. You've blocked them, you've cut off contact, you've cried, journaled, maybe even started therapy, and yet they still live rent-free in your mind. That's because these psychological traps don't just damage your heart, they rewire your thinking. When you're in a toxic dynamic built on manipulation, blame shifting and emotional baiting, your brain starts adapting to survive it. You overanalyze, you question yourself, you second-guess your instincts. Even after it ends, your nervous system is still on high alert, waiting for the next emotional spike, the next apology, the next punishment. And that's not love. That's trauma conditioning. Let's break this down. You start to miss the highs, the love bombs, the intense apologies, the promises of change. Your brain craves the emotional relief that came after the chaos, even though that chaos was caused by them. You feel guilt for walking away. They convinced you everything was your fault, that if you just loved them better, it wouldn't have ended like this. So now, you carry their shame like it's your burden. You obsess over what-ifs. What if they changed for someone else? What if I gave up too soon? What if I was the problem? This is what trauma bonding looks like. A toxic relationship that felt like home, even when it was hurting you. So, how do you actually heal from this? You start by understanding the root of the manipulation. It was never about love. It was about power. And the moment you started seeing the truth, you became a threat. That's why they played the victim. That's why they made you question yourself. That's why the relationship had to be built on a cycle of reward and punishment. Because if you ever felt stable, you'd start thinking clearly. And if you thought clearly, you'd walk away, which you did. Now, you're in the aftermath, the detox phase. It's uncomfortable, it's emotional, and sometimes it feels worse than staying did. But that's not because walking away was wrong, it's because you're finally coming back to yourself, and healing always feels heavy before it gets light. So let me say this directly to you. You are not weak for missing them. You are not crazy for still thinking about them. And you are not broken just because someone tried to break you. The very fact that you're watching this, that you're seeking clarity, That means you're not stuck. You're awakening. And once you wake up, you can't go back to sleep. Because the version of you who tolerated the abuse, the manipulation, the self-doubt, that version, you left them in the past, right where they belong. When you've been psychologically manipulated, gaslit, love-bombed, and broken down over time, the damage doesn't just live in your memories, it lives in your identity. You start asking yourself, who even am I without them? What do I like, believe, value, when nobody is controlling me? Am I even capable of trusting again? And that question right there, am I capable of trusting again, is where the rebuilding begins, because the truth is, they didn't just take your peace, they tried to take your sense of self. Psychological abuse strips you of your voice. You stopped speaking up because it always led to conflict. You stopped expressing emotion because it was always called too much. You stopped setting boundaries because every line you drew got crossed, ignored, or turned into another reason to guilt you. So your world shrunk, your identity faded, and your mind became a war zone where survival came at the cost of authenticity. But now you get to take all that back. Let's talk about how. Step 1, rebuild trust with yourself. This comes before trusting anyone else, because manipulation taught you to silence your gut, to overthink your instincts, to believe that you were too sensitive, too insecure, overreacting. Now you must reverse that programming. Start small. Journal your daily thoughts. When a red flag pops up, now don't dismiss it, write it down. If something makes you feel off, acknowledge it, even if no one else sees it. Practice micro decisions. What do you want to eat? What do you believe in? What do you enjoy without trying to please anyone? You reclaim yourself in the details. Every time you trust your voice, your identity gets stronger. Step 2, redefine your values. In toxic dynamics, your values get replaced with theirs. You bend your needs to keep peace. You tolerate disrespect because nobody's perfect. You mistake chaos for passion and control for love. Now, it's time to get clear on your truth. What are your non-negotiables? What kind of love do you want? And what kind won't you accept again? What does respect look like to you? In words, in tone, in action. Don't just think about these. Write them, post them, memorize them, because when someone tries to cross those lines again, you won't freeze, you'll recognize the pattern, and protect your peace like it's sacred, because now it is. Step 3, release the shame. Let's be real. Even after you leave, the shame lingers. How did I fall for that? Why didn't I leave sooner? What does that say about me? It says this: you had a soft heart. You believed in their potential. You saw the good in someone who was manipulating your love. That doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. But now you're a human with wisdom. And part of reclaiming your identity is stopping the self-blame loop. You don't punish yourself for surviving the storm. You celebrate that you made it out. Step 4, reconnect with who you were before the damage. There was a version of you, before the manipulation, before the walking on eggshells, before the anxiety, the tears, the confusion. They might feel far away, but they're not gone. They're waiting. So what did that version of you love doing? Was it creativity, spending time in nature, laughing freely with no fear of being too much? Start there. Return to those spaces, even if they feel awkward, even if you don't feel like yourself yet. Because healing isn't about feeling perfect. It's about feeling safe enough to try again. Step 5. Understand. This is a process, not a switch. You won't wake up one day and magically feel fully healed. You'll still have triggers. You'll still have days where the past whispers to you. But here's the shift. You'll respond instead of react. You'll pause before chasing validation. You'll walk away from what used to trap you. And one day, without realizing it, you'll do something that old you never could. You'll say no without guilt. You'll say, I deserve better, and mean it. You'll sit alone and feel whole, not empty. That's when you'll know you didn't just escape the abuse, you transcended it. At first, healing feels like surviving, But survival is just the beginning. True healing is when you take the pain and turn it into power. Not the loud, showy kind, not revenge, not pretending you're unbothered, but quiet power, unshakable power. The kind of power that says, you will never have that kind of access to me again. Let's talk about the comeback. Step 1. Become the person you needed back. Then you don't heal by waiting for them to apologize. You heal by becoming the version of you they hoped you'd never become. The version that doesn't beg. The version that trusts their own perception. The version that sets boundaries and doesn't flinch. If someone sent you back in time with everything you know now, you'd see the red flags. You'd walk away the first time they twisted your words. You'd protect yourself the moment they disguise control as love. That person lives in you now. They're not a fantasy. They're your future self. Start living as them today. Step 2. Use the pain. Don't just carry it. People say, let go of the past, but Stoic wisdom says, don't waste it. Everything you experienced and the confusion, the trauma, the self-abandonment can either weigh you down or sharpen you. That betrayal, it made you see who's real and who's manipulative. That emotional roller coaster, it taught you what peace should feel like and what it's not. Those nights you cried yourself to sleep, they turned into nights you learned to comfort yourself. You didn't survive for nothing. So don't just walk away from the past. Walk forward with the wisdom it gave you. Step 3. Redefine power on your terms. They thought power was control. You thought power was being chosen. Now you know, real power is self-mastery. Not chasing when you feel lonely. Not reacting when you're triggered. Not bending just to keep someone else comfortable. Stoic wisdom says, no man is free who is not master of himself. So when they come back, with guilt, with charm, with vague promises of change, you won't need to block them to feel strong. You won't need to prove anything. You'll simply say no, not from pain, not from pride, but from peace. Step 4. Inspire without needing to be understood. Not everyone will get it. Some will say it wasn't that bad or you've changed. Let them talk. Because you didn't survive all of that to keep shrinking. And now, without saying a word, you become proof that you can lose yourself in someone and still find your way back. That you can be manipulated and still rise wiser, stronger, more grounded. That you can be broken and rebuild something even better. This isn't just a comeback. It's a rebirth. And the version of you who walked through hell, they didn't die there. They became fire. You're not a victim of your story anymore. You're the author now. So take the pen and write a future so powerful that even your past wouldn't believe it. If you made it this far, it means you felt it. The emotional games, the confusion, the moments where love felt more like survival than safety. But hear me now. What they did to you doesn't define you. What you do next does. You're not broken. You're becoming someone wiser, someone stronger, someone who now sees through manipulation like glass. They thought you wouldn't wake up, but you did. And this is your comeback story. If this message hit home, drop a comment below and tell me your moment of awakening. What was the trap? And how did you break free? Let your voice remind someone else that they're not alone. And if you want to keep building that strength, subscribe. Because we're just getting started. This is Stoic Night. And your pain? It's about to become your power.